Sometimes I can just smile at Barcelona fans because look at this comment right over here. Sorry, that was one of the biggest bullshit videos I have ever seen in a while. And then the game happens, and everything that I previewed in my videos basically happened because this game was just about how can we open up the half space? How can we draw the Inter Milan midfielders out of their position? And how can we stop Barcelona from doing that? That is basically what this game was about. As always, do subscribe to the channel, guys. It's going to help us a lot. But let me show you some things that happened in this game. In the build-up phase, Inter Milan didn't relatively press high and allow Barcelona to come to the first phase of build-up. And therefore, Barcelona with Koundé, Martinez and Kubarsi have a 3 against 2 numerical advantage. Therefore, you would see Gerard Martin going forward with Rafinha inverting into the half space. And just like I've shown you, Inter wanted to press up high, therefore you would see Henrik Mkhitaryan joining Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram up top in order to create a 3 against 3 against Barcelona's back line. Therefore you would see Bastoni was also tasked to follow Dani Olmo. Unfortunately, Barcelona couldn't take advantage of the space in behind. Over here we see a back 3 of Inigo, Kubarsi and Koundé in a back line where Henrik Mkhitaryan was tasked to come and create a 3 against 3 against Barcelona's back line, where Bastoni was tasked to make sure that Olmo didn't receive the ball relatively easy, but the space I feel like Ferran Torres could have done more in order to receive the ball in the space right here. Even though Barcelona wasn't taking advantage of the space in behind Bastoni, he didn't really want to have Mkhitaryan to go up to Koundé, therefore having Dani Olmo in the half space. Therefore he would stay back and therefore have a 3 against 3 in the wider regions against FC Barcelona, and the whole team would just shift across. But like I said, I wish Ferran Torres would early on take advantage of that space. Especially on the left side, Inigo was allowed to have much time on the ball, where you would see that Barella was basically tasked to keep the passing lane closed to Rafinha and allow Martin rather to receive the ball. You would see later on Mkhitaryan, after they scored, they would actually have him in the half space allowing Koundé to have the ball, therefore DeMarco could solely focus on Lamine Yamal. You would later on see that Inzaghi even had DeMarco to go on to Jules Koundé as he wanted to put pressure on his centre-backs, and therefore he would just have his whole backline shift across in order to make up for the space. But this could have been a disaster because now you would have Bastoni in a one-on-one situation against Lamine Yamal as well, and boy was he cooking. Here we see that DeMarco is coming up relatively high in order to put pressure on Koundé because he really wanted to have his midfield intact in order to stop the verticality of Barcelona. Inzaghi kept changing his tactics as he went back to Mkhitaryan being the one on Jules Koundé. Therefore you would see that Bastoni was actually tasked again to go with Dani Olmo as they didn't want him to be one-on-one with Lamine Yamal, but they were just tasked to be a lot more defensively disciplined. But towards the right, Denzel Dumfries was more than happy to follow Gerard Martin, as I think they targeted him specifically in order to have the ball lured out to him, and then the backline was much more comfortable shifting across because the danger is actually with Lamine Yamal. And therefore Barcelona was on many occasions on the left hand side forced back to play to the centre backs and goalkeeper. Here we see that Henrik Mkhitaryan was the one tasked to go defend Koundé, where Bastoni, DeMarco and Çalhanoğlu was much more adamant to press and be disciplined onto those three. But this is also why I suggested a back 3 with wing backs, because you can see Dumfries going over in order to press. But look at this, even Bisek, which is the right centre back, had to go over to the wing, and look at the amount of space Inter Milan had just in behind them. So imagine us having a wingback there up high in possession. Lautaro and Marcus was also used to protect the midfield. For an example, if Barella would go out, you would see Marcus going into the midfield where Martinez would shift across in order to protect the center and cut out the passing lanes. Therefore, it would make it difficult for the ball to be progressed towards Jules Koundé. But Marcus even went to the left-hand side and defend in these wider areas in order to not have a numerical disadvantage. So Marcus Thuram was really well used by Inzaghi. I am absolutely sure you've noticed that everything was basically about protecting the half spaces, as Inzaghi wanted to do anything in his possibilities and in his power to stop Barcelona from central progression. Barella out wide here, you can see Marcus Thuram actually in the midfield, where Barcelona was now forced to go into Gerard Martin, which is not so dangerous on the ball. Thuram being also wide also allowed Inter Milan to have Mkhitaryan and DeMarco on Lamine Yamal and actually double team him, but that did not work, as this kid just danced past them, absolutely fried the hell out of them, and he would score the goal. Lamine is the best in the world right now. The second half pretty much continued being a chess match of opening up the half space, where Inigo was now the one who was drawing Barella out, creating the space in this half space area for Barcelona to take advantage of. But we did see that Kubarsi was also sometimes taking up the space in order to let Inigo go forward in order for Rafinha to take advantage of the space in that half space. And unfortunately, Barcelona couldn't really take advantage of these areas because there was very little runs in behind from the wider areas or from Ferran Torres as well. We see over here that Rafinha had to receive the ball wide along with Inigo, who's now in the half space. And this is why I was suggesting a back three with wing backs, because then Rafinha didn't have to come to these regions to receive the ball. And you can see Barella was coming out of his position, and if Rafinha was in the half space with a wing back, you would have already seen him receive the ball in these areas, giving him time and space as well. And Dumfries was also having to go out, and you can see Rafinha was also in that area right there, and that is ultimately why I suggested a back three. But I think you can see most of the tactics that I suggested or that I previewed in the videos before this match was actually happening in this game, as mostly it was about opening up that half space and how can we put pressure on the center backs of Barcelona. But I want you guys to tell me, what do you think? What did you see differently from what I suggested or predicted? And as always, do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot to get this family to grow bigger. We upload weekly Barcelona content. I will see you in the next video. Visca Barça!